right? And, at the end of the day, what's amazing about what this country was and can still be is that the son of a butcher and the daughter of a missionary can rise in their profession. My parents did very well. They're pastors, Foursquare, right? They have really good Sunday school if you want to come. They were not children of Awolowo or Herbert Macaulay. They didn't have a lot of money. But in this country, in this same country, they could rise to the very top of their professions. And they could deliver a good life for me and for my siblings. And here I am today, right, because of their sacrifice. And that's what's amazing about what we have been able to build in this 58 years, right? Despite all the bleakness, we did build that kind of country. But what was interesting about it was, they had incredible opportunities, right? They had the ability to get a great education. They had leaders who believed that the children of butchers and missionaries should have a chance in this country. And I don't know that we still have leaders like that today. All they're concerned about is their own kids going to LSE and Harvard. That's why I actually don't speak at those schools anymore. But, because I'm not interested in speaking to the children of the elite, we have to create a society that creates opportunity for everybody, right? And we can't keep creating a society where, we shut doors in people's faces to protect interests and the ladders of social mobility are removed from underneath common people. That's immoral, right? That's immoral. Somewhere in Proverbs, in Psalms, the Bible says that, God will have mercy on those who consider the poor, right? And their life will be long. The life of those who consider the poor will be long. And that's why, Pastor Pt.2's narration about, Lazarus is a very important one for us to come to in this country. We've lost a country that has compassion for the common man. And it's shameful. And, I just want to tell two stories about my parents, and I don't want to talk about them too much, but that just show you the kind of society they lived in and why it was possible for them to be where they are today, right? When my father finished primary school, we went back to the village. And in the village, at that time, they didn't need money for much. So even though his mother gave him 50 kobo, he didn't really need the money for much. And at the time, he just kind of kept it in his pocket and was running along merrily with it. And then one day, he saw some people selling forms for a secondary school in the village. And he was like, I don't know how his mind works, because I know I wouldn't have bought school forms with my money. But he bought a form and applied, not thinking very much about it. Now, a little later, he did take the common entrance exam, tried to get into a unity school like most people did at the time, but he wasn't selected. But the funny thing was that the form that he had bought absent-mindedly became his saving grace, right? It was the only way he could get a secondary education. The school was called Victory Comprehensive College in Edidi, right? Now, this school wasn't set up by missionaries, right? It wasn't set up by the government. It was just set up by an individual who just believed, people in my village should get a good education. And, the school is going to be 50 years later. The legacy of the school is in the many men, including my father, that this school has built. And, the truth is, if this man hadn't taken the initiative to build this school in the village, I don't think I'll be here standing and talking to you today. One more story. My mother, she grew up in Kano. And she went to primary boarding school, which is a little bit unheard of right now, Our kids are so soft. They don't see us every day. They're telling us they'll turn out bad. We'll see. But, my mother was the daughter of a missionary, but my grandfather had taken some time off. And he was sent by the mission to Canada, right, to go and study. And so, the family was struggling. It wasn't easy at the time. But she told me, in the Kano of her days, there were buses that would roam the streets picking up girls, right, from the street. They'll put them in the buses, almost like, I was like, you couldn't do that today because somebody would definitely sue you. But to pick the girls up, put them in a bus and deliver them to a boarding school called Shekarau Boarding School, right? And in that boarding school, they would buy everything that they needed. Everything, down to underwear. And they would tell the parents on radio, look, you can come and look for your child here, but you ain't taking them back home, right? So that was the society my parents lived in. And now today, we have terrorists driving up to schools doing the exact reverse. And the government doesn't even think there's anything to do about it, right? Leah Sharibu is still missing. 112 girls are still missing. And our political class don't even feel any responsibility to bring them back. And we also don't. That's the reality, right? Many of us are just going about our lives. We're not shocked by the truth that in a society that once told parents, you need to send your girl children to school, right? There are girls missing from school, and we're still going to go tell those parents, you should send your child to school. I mean, does that make any sense? But that's the nation we live in today. And, as I started to prepare and I started to talk to my friends about, look, like, what was your parents' experience growing up? Like, this $1 to 1 naira thing, it's a nice gimmick, but I don't believe that was what made Nigeria great at any point in time. What was it about the society your parents grew up in that made it different in some way, shape, or form? I mean, it wasn't pleasant. There were mistakes that were made. But what made it different? And, the one answer that kept coming back was just, it wasn't the fact that, you had 1 naira to $1, a better exchange rate. It wasn't the fact that you didn't need visas to so many countries and people actually respected the green passport. It wasn't that you could fly Nigerian Airways. Like, these are the things that the middle class thinks is important, but people didn't really care about that stuff, The truth is that the generation that won us our independence, there were people in that generation who deeply cared about the public interest, right? There were people that deeply cared about the public interest, and they were willing to work for it. They were willing to build schools. They were willing to build hospitals and community spaces. They were willing to sacrifice for the public interest, right? You had people like your Awolowo. You had people that, I saw a letter on social media the other day where Bola Ige had written to children of the state he was governing at the time, about free education. People cared deeply about making sure everybody's child had the same opportunities as theirs did. And that's what we've really lost. Everybody's about what's going in their bank account. Everybody's about what are they going to get out of this. Everybody's trying to protect their personal interest. And it's destroying our society. Today we're popping bottles in clubs. We're driving G-Wagon. We're joining Sweet Boys Association. And then we'll turn around and complain, this is Nigeria. Well, guess who? Guess who made it like that, right? Guess who made it like that? You. We used to be better. And so the question that brings me here today basically is, what is the fate of the son of a butcher? What is the fate of the daughter of a missionary in the north in today's Nigeria, right? In the platform of 2068, can their grandson address you here today? Because it's okay to clap for all the things that we've accomplished, but the only way this country gets better is if we can make more of it possible. And it will not be one man, right? It will not be one man. So, again, I said, I know it's a non-religious program. I'm not trying to compromise national interest or whatever, but, I draw my own inspiration from the Bible, so you will forgive me, right? So, I want us to turn to Esther chapter 4, verse 14. And I hope we can display it, because I told them that the only presentation today would be the Bible verses. But, let me just set some context about this verse. Look, Haman had just declared the destruction of the Jews, right? This was supposed to be the first genocide, right? Mordecai had sent tears to Esther, who was the queen of the time, and said, look, please talk to to Oga, you know, over power, Joe, you know,